Maybe the battery in your tuner died. Maybe you left it at home by mistake. Maybe you just don't want to rely on tuners anymore and want to be able to tune by ear without one. Hi, I'm Luke from Become a Bassist, and in this lesson, you're going to learn 3 ways to tune your bass by ear without a tuner, without needing anything like perfect pitch. Welcome to Become a Bassist, where it's all about insanely practical, no BS bass lessons designed to get you playing better bass, having more fun, and becoming the best bassist you can be. And the best version of you playing bass is probably playing in tune, right? And if you can tune your bass by ear on the fly, then that's even better, because you won't ever have to rely on electronic tuners or other people to tune your bass for you. You know, we can't all have our own personal bass techs tuning all our instruments for us. Now, you may be thinking, I need to have perfect pitch to tune by ear. And in case you don't know, perfect pitch is this kind of skill where you can hear any note and just know what it is without any kind of reference. You know, like a car beeps its horn 3 blocks away and you can say, oh, that's an F. Now, this is a cool trick, but you don't need this skill to tune your bass by ear. I certainly don't have perfect pitch, and I can tune my bass absolutely fine, and I'm sure you'll be able to as well, using one or all of these 3 methods. Now, method number 1 for tuning your bass by ear involves using some kind of a reference pitch that you know is in tune. So for example, if you were at a gig or a jam session or anything like that, and you had a keyboard player, you could simply ask them to play, a note and tune your bass to that note. Now, a keyboard is great because you know it's going to be in tune. Tuning to other people's guitars can also work, but only if you know they're in tune as well, so that can be a little bit dicier sometimes. Right now, we don't have a keyboard player or guitarist to help us out, so what we're going to use is a drone, which is just a super sustained long note that just doesn't ever change. It's just that same note for days. Now, the goal here is to match the reference pitch to your open strings, the E, the A, the D, and the G. Now, if I'm doing this in real life, like at a jam session or a gig or rehearsal or anything like that, I'll usually ask for a D or a G rather than an E or an A, just because the D and the G are going to be a little bit easier to hear because they're higher in pitch, right? So let's start this drone playing. It's just a never-ending super long D, and we're going to tune our D string to this. Yeah? Now, right now, my bass is in tune, so if I play that D string against the drone, it'll sound like this. Yeah? Notice how everything sounds completely fine. There's no instability or anything like that, but listen to what happens when I start tuning my tuning peg down. Can you hear that? We're starting to get these kind of oscillations or waves as I turn the tuning peg down. And the more I do it, the further I go, the more and more out of tune, the further and faster those pronounced waves get. Yeah? So, if you're trying to tune your bass by ear, the goal is to get rid of these waves, those oscillations, as much as you can. And if you can do that, it means you're going to be perfectly in tune. Now, obviously, right now, I just tuned down. So let's tune back up. And let's put the drone back on. And we're going to try and make these waves get progressively smaller and smaller until they disappear completely. Okay, starting to get smaller. Closer still. Tiny bit more. There we go. So now we're completely back in tune. Now, this is an acoustic phenomenon, so the waves are probably going to be way more obvious when you do this for yourself on your own bass with your own drone, rather than kind of looking at me through your computer or your tablet speakers or phone speakers. If you're wearing headphones or using a good sound system, then this is probably going to be a little bit easier for you to notice this stuff, but it will be easiest if you do it on your own bass for yourself. So once again, we're in tune. If we start going down, start going out of tune, we start to hear those waves, those oscillations. So then we tune back up until they're gone. Just like that. Couldn't be simpler. Now, a neat trick that you can use is to try and sing both notes with your voice. It really helps you to internalize the notes you're aiming for. And if you're wildly out of tune, it should be able to tell you if you need to tune up a whole ton or tune down a whole ton. You don't want to accidentally tune to the wrong note, right? So if I just detune my D string once again, that's the note that my D string's on right now. But the drone, da, da, that's the note of my bass, and this is the note of the drone if I do that. Yep. So the one I'm singing, the one that's being played on my bass, it's a little bit too low, right? So again, that'll tell us that we need to raise that pitch a little bit. Just until those waves disappear completely. So using your voice can be a super helpful tool in this kind of, this whole thing. Now, if you're brand new to this, you can absolutely check yourself with a tuner to make sure you're actually nailing it. Just make sure you don't check before you think you've got it. Now, before we move on to the second method, you should know that in general, when you're tuning, you'll want to finish tuning your string by tuning up to the note you want rather than tuning down to your target. The idea is that you always finish tuning by tightening a string, not loosening it. Now this is because when you increase the tension on the string, the tension on the string and the tuning peg, there's less chance of any kind of slack being in there, less slack being involved, which means your bass will likely stay in tune for longer and be a bit more stable than if you finish tuning by loosening a string. In practice, this usually means, if something's a bit out of tune, just give it a quick down tune below where it needs to actually be, and then slowly tune up to it. You see guitarists and bass players do this all the time. They'll tune down, further than they need to, and they'll tune back up slowly. It's a good habit to get into if you want to make sure your bass stays in tune and be nice and solid. Method number 2 is the kind of standard way of tuning your bass, but it requires at least one string to be in tune. And since we've just tuned our D string, let's put everything else out of tune and retune to that D. So let's just do a bit of this, bit of that, bit of that as well. Yeah. Now, this method, the 5th fret method, involves playing the 5th fret on a string and then matching the pitch on the next string, on the thinnest string above, and it can work either way. So you can go up or down for this. It's probably a little bit easier to go up. So for this example, we know that this D string is in tune. So let's tune the G string to that D string. So all we're going to do is take any finger you like, play the 5th fret on the string that you know is in tune, in this case the D string, and then play the open G. Now they should be the exact same note. There shouldn't be any waves or instability or oscillations there, but since I mess with my bass, it's out of tune a fair bit. So have a listen to the 5th fret on the D string. Try and sing it like we said before. Da, and then try and play the open G, and then sing the open G's a little bit higher. Yeah. Now hopefully you can tell they're different notes, and hopefully you can tell that one is higher and one is lower. Try singing both again. Da, da. It's almost a half step apart. Da, that's the D string and the G string. So the G string is higher, right? That means we need to bring the G string down in order to tune that. So let's try just by turning the tuning peg on the G string down. Now remember, we want to finish tuning by tightening, not loosening. So let's actually go below where we think we need, and then tune up from there. Let's bring this down. So I've gone below where we think it needs to go. Da, da. So now we're a little bit. Let's tune it up. Try and get rid of those. Right about there. Rid of those oscillations. Hear how when we get there, the waves completely stop. That means we're perfectly in tune, right? Now, if you find that you're tuning and the speed of the waves goes down and then goes back up, it probably means you've gone too far. For example, let's try this. So the waves are there, they get slower, but then they get faster again. That means we've gone too far. So if that happens, just again, tune down below your target and then slowly tune up until the waves stop completely. Just like that. Again, you can check with the tuner if you like, but I'm pretty confident about that. Feels pretty good to me. Now you can do this in the opposite direction as well. So for example, our A string is out of tune. So we could potentially use this method to tune the A string. You'd play 5th fret on the A string and then tune it to the D. So in this case, the A string is lower. the D string that we know is in tune, which means we'd have to bring the A string up. But I actually want to show you an even easier method you can use that's especially useful for the lower strings, your E and your A strings. And that's the third and final method for tuning your bass by ear, which involves using harmonics. I actually love this method. It's probably my favorite because it's probably the easiest to hear because the notes we're using are much higher, which means they just really sing, and it's super easy to tell when something's in tune and out of tune. Now, in case you don't know what harmonics are or how to get them, I'll give you a very quick rundown. You take any finger in your fretting hand and you just very lightly touch the string over the target frets. Now, for this, we'll be using our 5th and 7th frets. Now, you're not actually pressing down, you're not pressing down at all. You're just lightly grazing the string, and you need to be right on the fret, kind of not in between them, not halfway in between 2 frets, right on top of the 5th fret, or it won't work. And you simply pluck, and you get this beautiful bell-like tone. Yeah? That's what we'll use to tune. Although if you do need help with harmonics, I've got a whole series dedicated to them, and I'll put a link in the video description down below. So for this to work, like I said, we'll be using the 5th and the 7th fret harmonics. The 5th fret harmonic is going to be the one on the thicker string, and your 7th fret harmonic is the one on your thinner string. So we've tuned our D and our G strings. So if we played the 5th fret harmonic on the D string, and the 7th fret harmonic on the G string, they should be the same note, and they're going to be in tune, right? Perfect. Very few waves to speak of at all. It might be a tiny little, right about there. This is the good thing about tuning by harmonics, is that you can get even more finely tuned than if you're just doing the kind of 5th fret method. That's why it's my favorite. Our A string, though, we definitely know is still out of tune, so we can use the D string to tune it with harmonics. So if we play the 7th fret on the D string harmonic right there, that's the note we get. This is our target note for when we play the 5th fret on the A string. Yeah? Now notice how easy it is to hear that these are different notes. Yeah? Da, 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 da. It's probably a little bit easier to hear compared to if we were using the 5th fret method, right? And that's why I really like this method. I could go on about this all day. Now, was the note that we played on our A string higher or lower than the one on the D string? That's our D string. That's our A string. The one on the A string is lower, right? That means we need to tighten it. We need to tune it up. So let's give it a try. Waves are getting really close together. Still a little bit. Right about there is where we're kind of eliminating those waves completely. That should do it. Or maybe not quite. Right about there. Now, once again, you can check with the tuner to make sure our ears are working well. But let's tune our final string, our low E string. And for this, again, let's use the harmonic trick because it works so well. Let's play the 5th fret harmonic on the E string, and then the 7th fret harmonic on the A string. Once again, you can use your voice and figure out which one is higher. That one on the E string, the one on the A string. The one on the E string definitely sounds higher to me, right? That means we need to lower that string. We need to bring that string down below where it needs to be and slowly bring it up. So let's go down below where we need to go and bring it up. Now, when we're doing this, when you're going down below, you don't need to be super accurate. Only on the way back up does, accuracy become important. Right about there, where we get rid of all those waves. Again, slaying those waves until we get it just right and they kind of disappear completely. Check once more. Yeah, we're golden. Now, doing this, being able to tune by ear, it's a great skill to have, and it's almost like a prerequisite to being able to play entirely by ear, which is entirely possible, by the way, even if you don't think you have a good ear. If you can tune your bass by ear using any of these 3 methods, you can absolutely learn to play by ear as well. And to help you do that, I've got another video on the YouTube channel. If you go right here and check out that video, there's a whole kind of process for getting started with playing by ear, which I'm sure you might enjoy. So go check out that video, and I'll see you in there.